Okay, so we're back, and I have a different cat with me. He's great big. Harry is so big. He's our biggest cat I think that I've ever had. I don't know if you can hear him purring. He's great big, and he's scared of everything. He's scared of plastic bags. He's scared of thunder. He's scared of the television. He's scared of people walking too quickly. He's scared. Scary Harry. But he's sweet. He likes to sit in your lap. And so he's going to help today. You helping? People can't see you. He's huge. He's like a big old mountain lion. And he's like the cowardly lion from The Wizard of Oz. That's basically what you are. So I'm doing a little series that I'm calling Books from a Candy Jar. And I'm just doing like where I pull out of my candy jar, I'm pulling one of the titles of my books out, and I don't know what it is, and I talk about it for about inspiration and writing process and whatever I can think of for 10 minutes about that particular thing. And like I said before, some of these books I haven't thought of for a really long time, or at least not in depth very much. I've maybe redone their covers and things, but I really haven't thought about, oh, gee, what was that like? I can't remember. You know, they're 10, 15 years ago. So, yeah, so this will be exciting. So here's the, okay. I'm not looking. Okay. Ooh, lucked out. It's a recent one. The Tailor of Semenov. Okay, let me start my timer. Set a timer for 10 minutes. Oh, is it on silent? Okay, there we go. All right. So, The Tailor of Semenov is my biggest novel ever. It is very long, but if you're going to write a Russian style novel, it needs to be long. I mean, that's just the thing. The only person who probably didn't write consistently long things who is a Russian is Pushkin. But, you know, he wrote some short stories. But he also wrote some really long stuff. And if you're into like Tolstoy or Dostoevsky, they're like many volumes and struggle and pain. And that's just the way it is. It's just Russian to be long and painful. So I have to be consistent. So anyway, I have always been interested in the Tsars in that era. I recently have discovered a love for the turn of the century. And I think I like it even more than the Victorian. Just because it's, in America anyway, the turn of the century was very like optimistic, and I love the fun flavor of the silent films. I like the art. I like the fashion. I like the jewelry. I like the hats. I like the houses. I like it. I like the music. I like ragtime. I mean, so stuff in the United States is I like that whole era, which didn't last very long. I mean, it lasted from 1900 to about to World War One, when everything went to heck. So it's just this very brief window for us. It's like it was about 18 years that it was. So, but in Europe, it was even shorter because there was horrible build up to World War One, just instability and things like that, right, Harry? So, but when I was little, when I was in elementary school, my mom and my grandma went to an exhibit, a traveling exhibit called The Treasures of the Tsars, and brought back a pamphlet for me to see. And it had all of those Fabergé eggs and crowns and necklaces and everything. And Mom told me briefly, because I was in 4th grade, I think, about how they were princesses and a king and stuff that got killed. And I think she said something about how they had put the jewels in their corsets. So when they were shot, oh, he's leaving. When they were shot, it bounced off of them. I thought that was kind of alarming. That's my earliest memory of anything having to do with the Tsars or the Russian Revolution. Fast forward then to when I saw the movie Anastasia, and I thought that was fun. I loved the music. I knew that Anastasia was dead. I think we'd seen some documentaries about it, about somebody who claimed to be Anastasia, and then they matched her blood with Prince Philip's blood because they're related. Everybody's related. All the royalty's related, and it didn't match at all. Nothing matched. She's a fake. And then of course later, then they found their bodies where they really were. And I saw the Broadway show Anastasia, which was great. Loved it. And then I think somebody suggested, like somebody online suggested you should do a reimagining of Anastasia. And I thought, no way, I can't do that. I mean, instantly I was just like, whoa, no way, because it's so intimidating. There's so much I did not know and so much research I knew I'd have to do. But of course, the way I operate, the way my mind is like that initial scary feeling of intimidation. It doesn't let go of me. And it's like, well, if it scares you that much, you better do it. That's how it was with Loki. Like, I was like, there's no way I can plumb the depths of that character. And it's like, well, now you have to. And I did that for like 10 years. Anyway, sidetrack. So that tremendous challenge for me, I was like, well, I'm going to need to do it, but I got to do it right. So I'm going to do a whole bunch of research, and I'm like, I don't want to follow the cartoon Anastasia was actually preceded by a live action film with Yul Brynner in it. That follows the same story. It's the exact same story. I did not know this. I think it's called Anastasia also. And it's this con man who, like, he's going to pass somebody off as Anastasia, and it winds up being Anastasia. But I didn't want to do that. I want to take her to France. I didn't want to take her out of Russia, at least not initially. So I thought, because I knew I wanted to be different, and I wanted to stay there and be in the time period in Russia, showing what was happening, because I thought that the film like escaped that too quickly. It's like, no, let's sit here, let's see what this is like between, with everybody. And then I was like, well, I don't know a lot about just Russian everyday life, because I knew I wanted to put her in a little town. This person that I rescued, it was initially going to be Anastasia. So, but then I was like, well, I don't know. And that's really going to be hard to find out. Like, what normal Russian people at the turn of the century in obscure little villages, what they wore, what they ate, how they talked, that's going to be really tough to find that out. And so I thought, well, what do I kind of know about? Well, ever since I was little, my mom has shown me the movie Fiddler on the Roof, which took place in a little Russian Jewish village. And I was like, aha, Jews. They have a way of living, a kosher way of living that is almost universal. Of course, there's variations where cultures are, but they have these laws, they have these rules. And I'm like, well, I can find that out. I can research that. And of course, there were a lot of Jews, like little tiny Jewish villages in Russia and Ukraine. And another advantage to them is they were very kind of self-contained. They did business with each other, and that was kind of it. And so it would become like a little universe all on its own. It's like, there we are. So I started reading the stories of the guy who wrote the stuff that Fiddler on the Roof is based on. And it's like Tevye and his daughters and all of these things. They're really fun. Some of them are very funny. Some of them are sad. Some of them are both. Kind of heavy, but with that Russian Jewish flavor to them. And they're just everyday Jewish people in Russia. So that was a really fun thing to do. It's a thick book that I got. I would grab it, but I'm running out of time. It's back there in my library. Yeah, so then I started reading things about the Tsars themselves, that family, and their family that went before, their grandparents and things like that, and the state of Russia. And I started reading the letters of, well, it's a book that I read of Anastasia and Maria's letters to their dad, mostly to their dad. And they've been translated, obviously. I don't speak Russian. And I was reading, and I discovered I didn't like Anastasia. She was mean. I never expected that. She was mean. She was mean in her letters to people. She called people fat. She made fun of them. And she also wasn't very clever. She wasn't a good storyteller. I don't know, I just didn't like her. And in her photographs, she's always doing this. She was not smiling. She was glaring at the camera. Now, I think that she would trip people. Like, she would stick out her foot and trip people, and because she was a princess, they couldn't get mad at her and tell her to stick it or spank her like she should have been spanked because she was being a jerk. But her older sister, Maria, just older than her, who's the middle kid. And I'm going to keep talking because this is too interesting to me. She's the middle kid, and middle kids sometimes get overlooked because she had two bigger sisters, and then there was Anastasia, and then there was Alexei. And the thing with Alexei is, he had hemophilia, which means that you do that and he'll start getting, I probably had hit him a little harder than that, but he'll start getting bruises, and then the bruise will just get even bigger. He can't, his blood won't stop bleeding. He's gushing blood either internally or externally. It's a thing that passed down through Queen Victoria's line. Kind of like it emerged most in the boys. Although the girls, I guess they had their tonsils removed, and some of them really tended to bleed a lot when they had that operation. So, that just wasn't a good. People shouldn't intermarry so much. Anyway, so I started reading Maria's letters, and she wrote this really funny letter about how she wanted to put flowers on the grave of one of the soldiers because they all helped at a field hospital during a palace that they had turned into a hospital for the soldiers in World War I, and one of them had died, and she wanted to put flowers. Well, it had snowed like 3 feet. Well, she's a Russian girl, but she's trying. She can't find it. She's walking through the cemetery, and she's like, "Where is it?" And then she gets one of the cemetery attendants, and he's like, "Oh, it's over there. It's up this hill." But it was through this slough, and both she and this guy wound up sinking all the way up to their hips in this snow. And then they were climbing up the hill, and she kept flopping down, and she said, "I was just laughing and laughing and laughing. It was just so funny that I couldn't get up with all of this snow and blood." And so she finally got there and was a flower. And then she went back to the gate where the cab with her two of her sisters, I think her big sisters, were in it to go back to somewhere. And the roads are so bad that there are big potholes. And then she had taken off her boot or no, something like that because she was full of snow, but she was all hot, and the cab hit a pothole and it flipped over. It was just one of those little handsome cabs, flipped over, and the girls were flying out, and so then she lost her boot, and she had to hop home all the way back with one shoe after this thing flipped over. I mean, it was just the funniest little story, and the way that she wrote this, I was like, I'm switching. I'm doing Maria, because she's, first of all, she's a little older. Anastasia was only 17 when she died, and Maria was 19. So I thought, okay, we've got a little bit of an older person here, which works better for a romance, honestly. Because at least the romance of this type that I wanted to do. I was also very interested in, well, when I learned about the executioners, well, first of all, in real life, they had a set of people that were guarding the family, but they dismissed all of them and got new ones when they knew that they were going to be shooting them, because the old guards had gotten to either like them or they kind of felt sorry for them, and they knew that they weren't going to be able to execute them. So I was like, that's an interesting concept. And also, some of those guards used to be in the imperial palace, like they were traitors. They turned on them. So I thought that's a really interesting concept too. Like, what if one of the imperial guards had become one of their guards in the house in Yekaterinburg, and then he was in love with Maria, and then he didn't want to shoot her, and he managed to find a way to save her. But I mean, his loyalties are elsewhere, and he's a communist. And then what if, she thinks that she's gotten away, and she's hiding amongst these Jews and pretending to be a Jew, and then this guy that saved her winds up occupying the village along with some other communists. And then also there's the conflict with the white army soldiers and the red army soldiers. It's a civil war is going on. A lot of times people think, oh, there was a Russian Revolution, bam, and then it just flipped over into communism, and they all just, no. There was a huge pushback and a lot of fighting back and forth and up and down, and it was a mess for a long time. Mostly because the Tsar was a incompetent moron, and I'm sorry, he was. He and his wife were incompetent, irresponsible, childish people who just wanted to withdraw from life and live with their little family in their ridiculous wealth. Absolutely ridiculous, luxurious wealth, while their people were out there eating dirt. And they didn't even know that they were eating dirt, and they did not care. They just wanted to. The people that I feel sorry for in this story are the kids, because they didn't have any choice and they didn't even know what was going on. They had no idea. They were so sheltered that they had no clue. And they had no power anyway. They couldn't have changed anything, even if they wanted to. Even if they knew, they couldn't have done anything. But it's those parents who were responsible. They were responsible for the atrocious state that Russia found itself in, of poverty and malnourishment and fury. And then the Tsar got them into World War I for no reason. He just thought it was something glorious to go do, and he mismanaged it. He was in charge of it, and he mismanaged it, and people were dying because all they had for weapons were like a shovel. It was ridiculous. So of course he got overthrown, and he deserved to be. He was a terrible king, like worst, terrible king. And yeah, I just feel bad for the kids because they didn't deserve that. But he did. He had blood on his hands for sure. He had innocent blood on his hands. He's a bad king. So anyway, I did tons and tons and tons of research for that book. It's extremely, you will feel like you are living there. You are sleeping there, eating there, walking around. You'll feel what the weather's like, what the air smells like, the sound of the river, the music. There's a lot of music. There's always music in my stories. The music in there is traditional, either Russian or Jewish music, or both. And everything is on the map. I researched everything on the map, anywhere that they went. I looked at it. I looked at landmark. Everything is as accurate as humanly possible. And also at the back of the book is kind of a glossary of everything that really happened. All the people and places and events and things like that. That's all at the back. So if you're a history buff like me, you'll enjoy just reading the back of the book, even before you read the whole book. Because there's no spoilers as far as what goes on in real life. We know that. We know this stuff. But I love doing all the research for it so that I could bring you this pretty epic story about friendship and love and just resilience, just not giving up, just this fierce, it's like it's fierce resilience, fierce determination to survive and to take hold of something better, even if everything is stacked against you and it looks impossible. It's not. So I will, if you haven't read that one, I'll put the link down below and you can read it. Sorry, I went on longer than that. I didn't follow my rules, but I couldn't stop talking about that one. That's one of my favorites. So go check it out.